In today's video, we're going to go over how to draw a portrait. And the first part of the video is going to be tips and tricks on how to measure out the different proportions so that you are sure to place your eyes and nose and mouth and make the head the right shape. And so I'll give you tips and tricks on how to do that. And the second part of the video will be a time lapse of the shading process. Of course, it takes far too long to do it in real time, and so that's why I've had to convert it into time lapse. And I'll just do a voiceover that explains the process of shading so that I can give you guys some advice on how you can shade your portrait. Okay, here we go with measurements.
Now, keeping in mind that every face is different, there are some general guidelines that you can follow, such as the distance between the chin and the eyes is the same distance as from the eyes to the top of the head. The distance of the eye from corner to corner on this is 1.5 centimeters, and then it's the same in between the two eyes. So each eye on this picture is 1.5 centimeters, and then depending on the person, often it's somewhere around the same distance from the side of the eye to the edge of the face. And on this side, it won't be that way because his head is ever so slightly turned. And so throughout the drawing, you'll be able to see this side of his face more and his ear more clearly than you can on this side. But it's still facing forward shot, just not quite as centered as normally. And you can see that in the neck as well. If he were to be facing completely forward, the neck would be coming down right here instead of over here. So generally, when a person is looking forward, their neck comes, you see that? Their neck lines up with the edge of their eye. There's a line an invisible line you can make right here that shows that the edge of the lip lines up with the middle of the eye. And that's if the person isn't doing something weird with their mouth. That's how it would line up. And then the tear duct lines up somewhere around the edge of the nose. So when you're drawing your portrait that you want to draw, you'll want to get out a ruler, check these, see how they measure up, find where center is so that you can get your eyes in the right spot, and then also check for the width of the head, check how many eyes across it is. And so you've got, for this one, you want to do your 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, and then make sure you've got the right distance on either side of the head when you're measuring. That center line, the ear goes up above it, and often the top of the ears line up somewhere around the top of the eyebrows. I've only drawn this eyebrow so far. These ears go a tiny bit higher than the eyebrow. And then you'll also have to check on your person how far down the hairline comes, because the eyes are measuring to the top of the skull, but the hairline is in a different spot. And that will change depending on if they're looking straight on, looking down slightly. But you can use different guides. So on my photograph, I found out that it was the same distance from the nose to the eyebrow as it was from the eyebrow to where his hair came down. And so I was able to draw it like that. Okay, so I drew these, I blocked in these shapes and lines with a 2H so it would be nice and light. And then I started doing the details of the eye with a 4B. And you want to make sure the pencil's nice and sharp. I generally enjoy working on the eyes first, and then I move on to the rest of the face. That's just the way I do it. All right, so the main things I'm going to talk about are how we're incorporating the different parts of the face into a sketch of the whole face, because I've already gone over in some previous videos how to draw the eye, how to draw the nose, lips, and the ears. So when you're drawing the eyes with the nose, you want to make sure you bring it in to create a ridge line from the tear duct area, and depending on your light source, one side will probably be a bit darker than the other, so this is my side that's darker. And make sure you don't forget to shade the whites of the eye. That's very important.
Every once in a while it's going to switch to time lapse because I didn't have anything really important to say at that point. But I have a couple more things that I'll explain during the video, so keep watching.
Gotta get rid of this line that leads down to the edge of the mouth. And when you draw your own, you don't have to draw that line. You can use a ruler and just like mark out, okay, from here to here, it's that, and you don't have to actually draw the line. I just did it so you guys could see.
All right, so it's back to time lapse now, and just want you to notice with the shading how you can use your pencil strokes and however light and dark you draw to help show the shape of the skin and the structure of the face, and how that the light travels across the face really changes depending on where it's casting on the face and the shapes that it makes within the structure. So try to look at it from a structural standpoint on how the light travels over the bone structure that is under the skin.
Okay, so when you are trying to tie in the nose with the mouth, this area is super important. You got a shadow behind the nose. And some people, there's like a crease right there. On this guy, there's not a crease right there. There's only one down here. And then another one right here. Now remember, this is the shadowed side of the face. So I want to go darker on this shadow. We've got a reflected highlight right here. And I drew in this line a little too far over, so I'll just fix that right now. So if you think of it in terms of shapes and planes, this shadow all kind of meets up in this plane right here. That makes kind of this rectangle. And then the reflected light makes up this plane. When you're looking at your photograph, what I like to do is I like to squint at the photograph, and it helps you see what is the darkest darks and what is the lightest lights. And even though this is reflected light over here, it's still not going to be one of our highlights. So you do need to just ever so slightly shade it in.
All right, back to time lapse to finish it off. And you'll notice as you watch me draw that I kind of flit around from place to place. I don't necessarily finish one thing and then move on to the next. Every artist is different. That's just the way I do it. I kind of layer things on, I think, and maybe that's the painter in me. I don't know. It's just the way I do it. And I don't know any other way to do it. But if you have everything measured out correctly, you can work on one spot at a time and move on to the next spot. Just make sure you have everything measured out correctly before you do that.
But this is how you want to think about it. You want to think about how the planes on the face get shaded so that it all goes together to make a structure of a face. You also want to keep in mind your darkest darks and your brights and the tones in between. Sometimes it helps if you're doing a pencil sketch portrait that the reference photo you're going off of, put it into black and white, and that can help you be able to see it better. So yeah, keep in mind the measurements, but you don't necessarily have to draw the lines on your paper. That was just for your reference to help you see, but you don't necessarily want lines on your paper unless they're really light and easy to erase. Like, I've run into this line a little bit. It's kind of come into the portrait. You can't see it probably in the picture, but it's been bothering me. So yeah, if you want more information about the different eyes, nose, mouth, and ear tutorials, check out my older videos and make sure you measure. Measuring really helps, especially when you're a beginner, to know where you need everything to go so that it's a more accurate portrait.
While the portrait looked good as it was right then, I decided to take it and work on it some more, somewhere I could sit and be more comfortable while I drew, because it's a long process. So here it is finished, and you can just see that when you spend the time on the shading and getting everything where it's supposed to go, it really makes a difference in the final product. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a great time drawing.